All right, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about how I was able to take the remote control to this Phantom 4 Pro that had been having the battery charge issue. And I'll go ahead and put a video up. This I had to send to DJI for them to certify that there was a problem with the battery. They certified that there was. What happened was that when you would press the power button, it would only come up to about the first light here, and then it would go away. And if you went to charge it, it would start flashing up to this first, maybe the second light, but then it wouldn't go any farther. And I found that a number of people have had this problem, both through the forums on the DJI website and also on YouTube. And so what I did is I started looking around. It turned out that I was in a situation where I had purchased the drone in the United States and I had moved outside of the United States. And so it was going to be problematic for me to try to get the drone repaired. There was not even a dealer, but I guess a reseller here in the country where I am. And I was just a little bit hesitant to try to mail this anywhere with the battery inside. And so I started looking more on the internet and on the DJI forums, and I came across one post on the forums where somebody had suggested that the reason for the problem was actually a faulty connection on the circuit board, on the motherboard in the controller. And so what that person did is they went ahead and they reflowed it. And this is where you use a hot air gun, a reflow station to basically remelt the solder that's in there and hopefully make it reconnect and then have a stronger connection. His theory was that there was a problem somewhere in that connection. And so I searched around on YouTube and found a number of videos showing how to disassemble and assemble a controller, which were very helpful. But I also found one in particular that was really great because it was a gentleman in Brazil, actually, and it was all in Portuguese, which is why I'm going to go ahead and do this video today so that the English speakers are able to follow along, and I'm going to do the best I can. I do want to put a disclaimer in here that, you know, you do this at your own risk. This is not something that is recommended or sanctioned by DJI. I don't know what the actual risk is to the components. I don't know the right heat setting to use, the optimum heat setting. I don't know how hot is too hot, etc., etc. And so just before you think about going down this road, just be sure that it's something you want to do. Be sure that, you know, either your remote is no longer under warranty or there's nobody who can repair it for you. And so you know that you're taking on the risk of doing this. So as I was saying, there was a gentleman in Brazil who repairs controllers and drones for a living. And he has a very helpful video on YouTube. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description for that because I want to give full credit where credit is due. I'll also put a link in the description to the post, or at least the page on the DJI forums describing this approach to trying to fix this problem. So I'll put a video on, the one that I sent to DJI to show them, for them to certify. I'm sorry for the quality of that video. I was doing it at as low a quality as possible because I was trying to email it to them. So I wanted to keep the file size down. That's the only reason. So anyway, what I'm going to do is today I'm going to show how to go ahead and disassemble this controller to the point where you can make the repair. I'm not going to actually heat the board because I've fixed it. As you can see, it's now working just fine. It charges just fine. And frankly, I wouldn't be doing this video if I hadn't been successful in following this course of action. And so the first thing you want to do, and the nice thing about this method of disassembling the controller is that it basically leaves no marks. And the nice thing about that is that you don't wind up with, you know, different Mars at the bottom or the top or whatever. It's actually pretty close to the way that this controller was put together, assembled or disassembled in the first place. And so the things that you're going to need are a small Phillips head screwdriver. You're going to need a T6 posi drive. I have a couple of tweezers here, straight and bent, and then there's a plastic sort of piece that I can use to separate pieces gently. I also have a reflow station. I bought this online for, I don't know, it wasn't terribly expensive, less than $50. I think it's probably $20 to $30. And there are all sorts of different rebranded versions of this. I've only used it a couple times. It's worked out fine, but you know, you probably get what you pay for. So first thing that you're going to do is you're going to look at this panel right here, and that has 4 posi drive screws. And so you're going to go ahead and take your posi drive screwdriver, and you're going to gently take these out. All right, so those are the 4 posi drive screws. They might be the only posi drive screws in the whole piece. I have to think about that, but I think they are. And so then what you're going to do is you're just going to lift off this panel here, and you kind of put that over here. As you can see, it's just a normal panel, nothing special there. And what you have here is you have the first small board. And this small board is actually attached with 3 fairly delicate strips. So there's one right here, and one right here. There are also 3 screws that are going to hold it in. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take out the strips. Now each of these has a small little flip anchor, and it's just right in here, this little black part. And so the recommendation is very gently to flip that up just with a fingernail. There it is. And then you can flip up the other one. This one's a little bit bigger. And then again another small one. And you can flip that up with a fingernail or with a small device. You just want to be gentle with that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and take a pair of tweezers or something, and just very gently, they have a little tab here sometimes, you just pull that straight out. As you can see, this piece is now disconnected. I'm going to do that with this one over here too. And we're going to then, instead of pulling out the bottom one first, we're going to take the Phillips head and take out these 3 screws. There was another Phillips head in this other set that I got that worked really well. At this point, this little board is attached only by this other tape, and so you want to very gently lift it up. And what you can do is just use your fingers now on the tape, and here it should pull right out. So there you are, there's the board. Just going to put that down there. What we're going to do now is we need to remove this top half of this thing. So what you can do is basically peel these off, and they're easy to take off after you've done it the first time, which is probably a sign that you shouldn't do it too often. They have this sticky layer on the back, so I'm just going to put this over to here. I'm going to try to keep the sides as organized as possible. And then for these 2 small ones down here, one way to do it is you can just maybe pull them out. If you can't just pull them out like that, you can actually stab them with a small, probably with tweezers or something like that, and just lift them out. They come out pretty easily. They're just stuck in there with the same sort of adhesive as the longer ones. All right, here we are. There's some more Phillips head. All right, so we've done that. Now, this is a pointer from the gentleman in Brazil, which worked out just great. Is that he says that some people have a problem where you see there are a couple of tabs here that hold it together, and people have found that, you know, they stick things in their screwdriver or whatever to pop the tab. But the recommendation that he has is you kind of go like this, and you hold on to this piece, and you put your thumb here, and then you just give it a little pull. And that comes apart, and the bottom comes apart. Now when you do that, what you have here is, note that the battery is connected to the board here, so you need to remove that first, and that's just a question of pinching it and pulling it off. There we go. And so now you've got this part. This is the battery. If the battery were your problem, this is where you theoretically could go and repair it. Notice that as you take this off, you better be very careful to make sure this tape stays under. That one stays on the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this piece over here, a little bit out of the screen probably. I'll go ahead and walk you through this part too. This is actually fairly straightforward. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking off this board right here. The key parts I found, and this was the recommendation from the DJI forums post that I successfully followed, was that because this is an issue with the battery, and actually with a sensing or a measuring or a gauging of the battery power, that the parts that I concentrated on when I reflowed it was right around this where the battery goes in, and right around here where the charger plugs in. And now what I've seen on some of the videos is that if you plug in the charger without the battery attached, what you should see is the lights lighting up, and they should be lighting up like it's trying to charge. So the 4 green lights going from left to right. When I did that, not having the battery attached, what I found was that it actually, it was only the 2 lights lighting up. Let me see here. I'm just looking to see if I can find that other Phillips head screwdriver that worked better for me. It's magnetized and the screws don't get as lost. This says it's a 1.5. I'm pretty sure this is the one that was working for me. What you want to do is you want to come in here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these tabs. As you can see, they're little tapes. They're just like the ones before. These are very delicate. You want to be very careful with these. But they undo basically the same way as the other one. So here's a number 1 over here. You kind of flip that up, and you can either, you know, use your fingers or use tweezers to do that. Here's another number 3 underneath here. So you very gently flip that up. You can either use tweezers or gently just tug it out. There's also these 3 bigger tabs here, and those you can just kind of pull out. Let's see if I can do it with my fingers or not. Yeah, so those just pop out. So you've got these 3 tabs. And of course you want to be as gentle as you can while you do this. These are all, you know, highly pretty close tolerances. Here I might use the tweezers here. Try to pull that up. There we go. That's popped out. And if you can, kind of pull them out of the way a little bit, because we're going to be removing this piece here. Also another tab here that needs to be flipped up. Find a place to put my finger. I'm just having trouble seeing that. There we go. And this one comes out too, straight out. You have another small one over here. number 5. That one is a really delicate one. You want to be very gentle there. Then you have number 2. And that one is on top, right on top of a number 4. I found these two to be the trickiest ones to get back in, because you want to make sure that it's not caught on the side or anything when we're putting it back together. But here we are, we've got number 4 here. I'm just going to flip that up. There we are, and then this one comes out as well. There we are. Okay, so all the tabs here are removed. There are 2 other things to remove. I'm going to use this set of tweezers here just because they give me a little bit better angle, and that's the antenna connections here. And so they're basically just brass or metal posts that are stuck into the board here, and they come out really easily. You just kind of get behind it, and you can just slide these in between, and they should pop right out. There we are. And then again over here, same sort of connection, and that pops out as well. All right, so now we've got those. And then what we need to do is we need to use our Phillips, and we're going to take out these screws. So there's 1, 2, I believe, screws here. I mean, as you can see, this is really nicely designed, not really made for the end user to take it apart, but it's really quite nicely designed and user-friendly, at least. And what I'm doing now is I'm just lifting up this piece, and what we've done is we've totally disconnected it. So this is the board right here. Let me put this down. All right, so as I said, when I was going to try to reflow this, I went ahead and got my reflow station ready. I set it to 250, and I had the blower down at kind of a fairly low velocity, 2, 3 on this thing that goes up to 8, it looks like. And I just sort of focused it right around. I hit most of the obvious spots where there might have been some reflow needed, but I focused it kind of around the area of both the front and the back of where the battery connects, and also right here, especially on the back here. Let me just turn this over. Before you reflow it, you can take off this plastic guard. You want to remove as much of the plastic as you can. This is the guard that is around these the indicator lights, and so I took that off, and I have a small stand that holds it, an extra set of hands there, so that I don't have to worry about the heat, the hot air hitting my hands. And so I hit mostly this area over here, which is of course the back of where the plug goes. And then, and then I just kind of went around a little bit. Now, the thing is that I don't, and this is where we don't really know about the temperatures. I didn't really know if I was hitting the right temperature, if it was having any effect. There was no visual effect. So I can't tell you how long I did it, maybe a minute or two, a couple minutes at each little spot. Came back to I reworked these spots that looked a little bit more burly and that were connected here with the charger port, as well as the back of here where the battery plugs in. Now, one thing to be careful is that there is, there's glass, there's plastic. You don't want to burn out or fry any of these circuits that are on here, so you want to be fairly careful, and again, you do it at your own risk. But as I did it, as you can see, small bit of melting on this foam here. You've got a couple pieces of foam, protective things here. I tried to steer clear of those while still getting as many of the different contacts as possible. So once it cooled, before I reinstalled it back into the unit here, I went ahead and again, after letting it cool, I plugged in the charger, and I was really pleased to see that I got all 4 lights moving. So that meant that I was ahead of where I had been previously, and in reality, it had essentially fixed it. And so, so when you're done reflowing it, done with the heat, 250 was the setting on here. Then this, basically you just go right back the way that you took it out. So you want to make sure that all these tabs and all these tapes are above it as much as possible so they don't get stuck underneath. And you're going to put it right back in these, oh, get this side too, right back on the little mounts that are here. Make sure nothing is getting pinched. And you kind of seat it down on those mounts. And the first thing you want to do is you've got these 2 screws that are going to go in, and they go in up here and over there. This is the last 2 that we took out. They're going to be the first 2 that go back in. At this point, what you need to do is start reattaching these pieces. I found that actually this plastic unit right here is pretty nice for pressing them in. First one I'm going to do is, I'm going to go in basically reverse order of what I did before. So we've got the antenna connections. I'm just going to seat that right in. You can hear that pop. And then this one that comes around a little bit. I'm going to listen for a pop. There we are. So the antenna is nice and tight there. Next thing I'm going to do is these bigger pieces. They just go right down on top and sort of seat right in there. You want to be kind of gentle, make sure they're lined up correctly, make sure that you're not bending any of the connections, but they just pop right on. All right, and now we've got to do our tapes again. And so you're going to start with the ones on the bottom, naturally. Where does this one go? Here we are. So this 4 here is going to go right into the number 4 connector. Kind of lift this one back. And this is probably, I'll get my hand out of the way here in a moment. This is pretty much the most delicate part of the whole thing, is just getting these back in. Might have to turn this around for a minute. Alright, so you see that I've pushed that in, and then I'm going to go ahead and just use my finger to press down, and now it's anchored in there, and that's what we needed. We're going to do that same thing with this number 2. You want to make sure that the little black anchors are standing up, otherwise, of course, the tape won't go in. Here's another one here. This one goes down to 5. Down. There it is. And then I'm just going to use my finger to hold it down. This one is a little bit thicker. I found that it was a little bit trickier to get in just because you had to give it a bit of a push. But this one went in easily this time. And then I've got 2 over here. So I want to make sure to do the one on the bottom first. This number 3. Let's see here. Trying to keep some of this out of the way so you can see. All right, so I had to jump back for just a minute. The reason I had to jump back was because my camera finished recording at 30 minutes, and I continued through the rest of the repair and didn't catch that until the very end. So I'm picking up where I left off. Roughly, I was just getting ready to attach these 2 small tapes here, and I did the one on the bottom first and the one on the top next. So it's done exactly the same way as all the other ones that I've showed you, so I'm not going to walk you through that specific part right there. So this is all attached. Now, if you were watching closely, you might have noticed that I forgot to, when I was putting it together, I forgot to attach the small rubber guard for the lights. I took those off to show you where I reflowed the board, and so I took this back off and I put that back on, and so that's reattached now. So please don't forget to reattach all the parts that you take off. So this board is all attached right now, and what we're ready to do is we're ready to put the back on. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we first of all attach the battery, because otherwise you'll have to come back in and do it again. So just press that in, make sure it's seated well. And one thing you can do if you just want to make sure that the battery is on there is you can very carefully just press the button, and you'll see that there's now power to the unit. And since it's not attached to anything else, that's the battery. So we have the battery attached to the unit. And what we need to do as we put this on is, number one, make sure that none of these tabs or none of these tapes are going to be where the screws go. And I don't see any of them that's going to be a problem. We also have to make sure that this large connector makes it through this hole. So we just want to, let's see, make sure that's lined up. Let's see here. All right, as you can see, I've got it sticking through the top there. And then I'm going to make sure that this is more or less lined up. I'm going to give it a nice firm press so it snaps together. Now it doesn't have to be completely solidly together because the screws are going to do most of the holding. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and take our long screws. I'm going to take my Phillips. And again, the only posi drives are the very first 4 that we took out. So all the rest of them are Phillips. And you put them down in here. We're just going to firmly attach the back of the unit to the front. All right, so that unit is back together. It's nice and firm. You can tell it's firm. Good time to look around, make sure that the only screws you have left are the 3 to attach the little board, the 4 posi drive screws, and that should be it. So you have everything else in there now, and then what you do is you go ahead and put on these, you reattach these bumpers. If you look closely, you'll see that these longer ones have kind of a squared edge that lines up well with this trigger button here, as well on the other side. And they basically just self-adhere right onto there. Be nice and comfortable. These small dots, these little bumpers, they have a small divot out of them that lines up with this piece. There's a little bump, and they just get pressed right in there. So, I mean, I don't know that it matters if they face one direction or not, but they'll only go in one direction. Probably keeps them from turning and working their way out over time. So we've got that. So all that we have left to do is to reattach this small board and then put the cap on. So for the small board, what I do first is I'm going to go ahead and reattach. First, I'm going to make sure that these the anchors are all flipped up. And I'm going to use my fingers here because it's going to be easier if I can do that instead of using tweezers. And I just press that in there, slide my thumb over the anchor, and it's attached. So I'm also going to make sure that these other 2 tapes are up above the board. I don't think they'll be trapped under there, just the way it's designed. And I'm going to take 1 screw. I'm going to put 1 screw in, just to hold the board where it is. All right. Actually, I'll go ahead and put the other 2 screws in too, because no reason not to. All right, so that board is on there firm. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and make sure these anchors are up so they slide in easily. And I'm going to slide these right in and then flip the anchor down once they're in. Repeat on this side. Again, probably the single most delicate part of this are these little tiny delicate ones. But they're all in. The anchors are all flipped down. So here, what we have left is just this. We have the 4 screws and this shell. And remember, these are the posit drive screws. So I'm going to take the T6 posit drive screwdriver and I'm going to go ahead and put these in. These are actually screwing into little metal seatings in there, so that's kind of nice. Gives it a longer lifespan. Not that we don't hope that we don't have to do this very often. And there we go. No screws left over. It's always a good sign. Feels firm. Now, what I'm going to do is show that we have the power first of all, and it turns on. Now what you want to make sure to do is, once you finish up, you want to make sure to set up the drone and just run through a couple of functions just to make sure that everything is right. What you don't want to have happen is throw everything into a bag and you run out and you're going to try to fly your drone and you find that, oh, one of the small tapes is not attached, and so you don't have any control on one of the controllers. I've gone ahead and done that. Everything works great. It hooks up well to the iPad and to the app. So I'm convinced that it's repaired. It is fully functional as far as I can tell. Again, you do this at your own risk. That said, it is not impossible to do for the layman. You take your time, you follow the steps, and if you're gentle, it should work out just fine. I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, put links to both the DJI, the post that first got me thinking in this direction, and then also to, I think it's Hobson is the name of the gentleman in Brazil who actually kind of walks through. He repairs a number of different things, but his video is very helpful for me to get a sense of the different parts that need to be reflowed and whatnot. Now, if you don't speak Portuguese, it might be a bit of a challenge, but maybe just, you know, turn the sound off and watch the different steps. He certainly seems to know what he's doing. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Really appreciate the time today, and thank you very much. We'll see you later.